Hey, I'm Stephanie, and today we're doing a makeup haul. So I'm going to show you all of the cosmetics that I bought in the past 6 months. And in classic style Stumbler fashion, they all fit into one hand, so it's another one-hand haul. Let's get into all the little goodies. If you've been following my channel for a while, you know that my favorite foundation for years has been the Estee Lauder Double Wear Foundation, the original formulation, because I felt like it was the most flexible foundation I had ever found. It could go from matte and full coverage to a dewy skin tint, just depending on how I applied it and what other products I used it with. So this was my favorite foundation, and the second I found out that it was being reformulated, I went online and I bought what I thought was the original formula, but it turns out I got the new stuff. So I now have an almost empty bottle of the original and a full bottle of the new formula. And what I wanted to do was not use it until I used it on camera. So I've actually already filmed a head-to-head comparison where I compare the original to the new formulation. And I am also wearing one on one half of my face and one on the other. Now, I don't know if you can tell. Now, I can tell which one is which, but maybe not for the reasons that you'd think it would be. And so I'm gonna let my opinions come out in the comparison video. But what I can say is I didn't mean to buy the new one, but I ended up getting it anyway. Now, once I realized I had bought the new formulation and I wanted to do a video on it, I thought I would go all the way, and I bought this for my channel. This is the Estee Lauder Double Wear Stay in Place Concealer. Also the new version. I had heard so many good things about this, and so I also wanted to see if the hype was real. I will link the comparison video as soon as it's online. The next thing I bought was a birthday present to myself, and it was the Prisme Libre Blush from Givenchy. This is something that had long been on my wish list because every time I went into town, I would forget to wear blush, and then I would stop by the Givenchy counter, and every single person who was ever there doing makeup always chose this blush in this particular color. This is Organza Sienne, shade 4. And I just figured every time that I had it on, the finish looked so beautiful, the color looked so beautiful, I really wanted it, and I wasn't getting it because I was like, oh, I don't really need a blush. But then I found out this was being discontinued. Europe has outlawed talc, I think as of 2027, so a bunch of makeup brands are reformulating anything that they had with talc in it so that it will comply with the new European regulations, and this product fell victim to that. And so I was able to get it on deep discount at the exact right time for my birthday. So I figured, you know what, I'm just gonna splurge and I'm gonna get it. And so this was my gift to myself this year, and I have to say I've been enjoying it. I'm not wearing it today only because I am doing a wear test, and if you watch my double wear comparison video, you'll understand why. But this is a lovely color. You will see it in future videos because I do really enjoy wearing this. So this, I think, was a win. And what I like about this, it's the same reason I liked the Discontinued Prisme Libre setting powder. And that's because it has this beautiful blurring finish that somehow takes down the wrong shine but keeps the right shine. I don't know if that's really explaining it right, but what I feel like is some setting powders, they take away your shine but at the expense of looking cakey, and I always felt like the original Prisme Libre powder that has been discontinued, that it always kind of left just the right amount of glow, and so it mattified in just the right degree so that texture was minimized, but it left enough shine to have your skin looking nice and healthy. And I feel like this blush kind of does the same thing. At one point last year, I remember talking about this blush on camera and about how I really wanted it, but I didn't know if I should buy it, but it was one of the things I was kind of considering. And a bunch of you helped me out in the comments by anti-hauling it for me. And several of you who had this blush had mentioned that you didn't really use it very often just because of the format, because it is a loose powder. So it's basically just like a loose setting powder would be. It can get kind of messy. You have to take it from the main container. I usually just put it in the cap. It can be a little bit more time consuming than normal blush for sure. When you have a typical, normal, conventional powder blush, you just open the compact, swirl your brush around, put it on your face, and you're done. But of course, anytime you have a loose powder, you have to make sure that there's, it's mixed well on the brush because there's 4 different colors. And I I gave a lot of merit to that argument, especially because it took me so long to get used to setting powder, because pressed setting powders didn't usually work for me. And the reason is just because there's more binding agent in a setting powder, and I feel like that just makes it sit differently on the skin. And I just wasn't willing to try a loose powder because I just felt like they were so inconvenient and the packaging was so much more bulky, and I just didn't want to get into using that. But I ended up, because I needed a setting powder and I wanted it to look good, I ended up learning to live with loose setting powder, and I ended up being really happy with the results on my face. And so I figured, you know what, I'm going to give it a try. And I have to say, I have been using it. Even though I haven't been wearing makeup as much as I normally would, I have reached for this an inordinate amount of times, and it's not new anymore. So the fact that I'm still thinking about it and using it says a lot. I do think that if you're just someone who's not into loose powder, then this kind of format of blush just would be not great. But I'm finding that even though the format's a little bit annoying sometimes, it's worth the extra effort. And then the last two things are drugstore items. This one I got at the beginning of the beach season because I had received the Polar Express palette in PR, and I discovered how much I really enjoyed wearing blue on my eyelids. And sometimes I'm not really in the mood for like a full out makeup look nowadays, which is strange for me, but I think it's because I've had really, really low energy the past few months. So when I do my makeup, it tends to be much lower key. And so there's been some days where I just haven't even had the energy to do eyeshadow, which says a lot because I'm an eyeshadow girl. But what I did notice is I really liked a pop of color on the lash line, and so I was using that palette as an eyeliner. I would just put a little bit of the blue on my lash line and call it a day. But once the beach season started, I realized I wanted something a little bit more waterproof, and I also wanted something that would give me a little bit more definition, and I found this at the drugstore. It is the NYX Epic Ink Liner, the Glitz formula, and this is Tapered Twinkle. And this is just a really cute color. I feel like it perfectly suits my coloring. It's muted enough that it's not standing out totally, but it's colorful enough that it gives me a pop of fun. And so I find that if I want to look like I'm wearing makeup and I want to add a pop of color, then this is what I have been reaching for. And then the last thing that I bought was just a couple of weeks ago because I've noticed that some mornings I'm waking up with like really different circles under my eyes. I've always had dark circles. It's just a thing I've had ever since I was a little kid, but I feel like the color of them is changing on some days, and some days they're kind of looking like purple. Some days they look kind of red, and sometimes they look kind of blue. And I was used to the blue circles I always had, which is why I always had my favorite Charlotte Tilbury peachy orange color corrector, because that is what suited my particular shade of dark circles. But as the color is evolving, sometimes they're almost more reddish, but I have green color corrector. I really like the one from Salt New York, so I can use that. But when they turn kind of purpley, then I feel like I need something yellow. And I didn't want to go spend like a ton of money on a corrector because I don't know if this condition is like permanent, if my coloring is changing, or if this is kind of just a temporary thing because I've been so exhausted lately. And so I just decided I would stop at the drugstore, and I got this one from NYX. And to be honest, I'm just starting to wear makeup more regularly again, so I've only had a chance to try this out twice so far, and I don't really have any thoughts on it because both times I put it on, thought, okay, and I left the house and didn't think about it the rest of the day until I had already taken my makeup off, so I couldn't do a wear test or anything. But it is the sort of thing I'm looking forward to playing with on the days where my under eyes are looking a little purpley. And that was my one hand haul. I know that some people are going to be like, well, that's boring. There's nothing like new to the market there. It's all old news. And I can see that. But one of the reasons for that is I have literally not been on social media in months. So I have almost zero idea of what's new on the market. I saw Marc Jacobs re-released, so we will be talking about that in a future video, because now that I am back online, I do plan to dive into the new makeup world once again, and we'll see what tempts me when that comes along. So if you're interested in new makeup videos, then make sure to subscribe to see those. And if you enjoyed this video, then you might also like this one here. Thanks so much for hanging out. I hope that you'll like, comment, subscribe, and thank you to all of my channel members and patrons for making content like this possible. I hope we can all remember that even stumbling is a form of moving forward. So let's stumble in style.